Steel Curtain Network.
Touchdown! Touchdown para Calvin Austin! El Monte Washington es arma. ¿Quién más? ¿Quién más? DJ Watt!
What is up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome to another post-game show. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Bryan Davis. No Dave Schofield. He was in attendance at Acrisure Stadium for the Steelers' thrilling 18-16 win. This was a throwback game, Steelers-Ravens. What were we thinking, predicting high-scoring affairs? No. This was a classic. Throw style points out the window. Bryan, what's up? What's your knee-jerk reaction?
Knee-jerk reaction is that, no, it does. Yes, it does get better than this. It definitely does. And because of a win like this, you actually feel that it's possible to, at the end of February, say it doesn't get any better than this.
This game, I mean, the Steelers do they only win? They've won 5 games in a row now, dating back to before the bye. They have a 1.5 game lead in the AFC North now. With the game in hand, obviously, over the Ravens. They still have to play them again. We know this. But this was an ugly game. It was not pretty for those that like offensive scoring. But then again, it's like I was talking to my daughters who were sitting next to me. This is like their first year, Bryan, of really being involved and interested in the games. I said, girls, I know you all are new to this. This is Steelers Ravens. They're like, I can't take this. It's so stressful. I said, this is Steelers Ravens. This is what it is. And it lived up to the billing. Bryan, I can't speak for you. I knew the Ravens were going to score a touchdown there. And it was just, will they get the 2-point conversion? And correct me if I'm wrong. Was it not another, not botched, but a missed 2-point conversion a few years ago where TJ Watt came rushing in on Lamar? He had to drop his arm. And that was the deciding factor. Didn't that happen already? Haven't we lived this already?
Yeah, that was the 20-19 game when they should have won 21-20. It was a pass to Andrews. Yes. So, yeah, I got to tell you, and what you're experiencing with your daughters is the same thing I'm experiencing with my son and his friends. And he is full bore. Seriously, he is all in, and he's learning the game as well. Yeah. And we're even getting even more new traditions here. So I know the traditions in the Davis house are weird. They're getting weirder, but they're working.
So the Steelers win. And it's all Chris Boswell, 18 points, all on the foot of Chris Boswell. But on a day where, we used to always say Justin Tucker is the gold standard of kicking. Not today. We're going to start with special teams, actually, Bryan, because why it's appropriate. It's appropriate to start with special teams. Chris Boswell, perfect 6 for 6. He made a 57-yarder. He had a 50-yarder. I mean, this guy, if you had him on fantasy for like production-wise, out of this world production from Chris Boswell. But again, his counterpoint, Justin Tucker, missed 2 key field goals. You have to wonder if he doesn't miss those, which he normally doesn't. The outcome could be different, yet that is the way these games go. What do you want to say, Bryan?
And I do have him this week, and it's very important in that league to have him. My kicker went down, Butker went down, but I've been rotating them back and forth. Okay. Boz is great. But I will tell you this, not just Boz, my son now has a new favorite Steeler, and it's Danny Smith Jr. And every time he sees him on the screen, he yells out, "I'm cut from a different cloth." And then he says, "Danny Smith is my spirit animal." So, but Corliss Waitman. I cannot tell you enough how great Corliss Waitman is for this team. Yeah. He was booming. And I'm really glad to see what he can do, because we were all worried when Cameron Johnston went down, and Corliss Waitman comes in, and it's like, no problem.
Yeah, I mean, and let's also remember why Corliss Waitman didn't stick really in Pittsburgh was not he struggled holding the ball. Like that was a big issue when he came to Pittsburgh. They almost had to teach him how to hold the ball properly. He's doing his job there. So kudos to the special teams unit. Absolutely deserving of getting first billing on this show. Before we get into the meat and potatoes here of the offense versus defense and all that fun stuff, let's do some super chats. Brandon Diaz gives us $1.99. Said Stevie Wonder can call a better offense. SMH, shake my head. Man, come on. Like I understand that, Brandon. Like I really do. But the Steelers win. Okay. Like this is one of those games where if you say style points, as Mike Tomlin says, you can throw them out the window. If there's a game that you point to and say, this is a game where it doesn't matter how they do it, as long as they do it, Bryan, would you not agree that it is the Ravens game?
Yeah, and you got to throw everything out the window. Style points, any kind of points, exclamation points are the only thing that you're going to have that has a point in them here. And the W. And Mike Tomlin, if you did not listen to Mike Tomlin's post-game press conference or the recap that I did that's already up on the Steel Curtain Network, you've got to. Because the thing about it is Mike Tomlin, when they said to him, and I think it was Filipponi that was asking him.
It sounded like him.
He said, hey, if somebody told you at the beginning of the week that you would beat the Baltimore Ravens without scoring a touchdown, he said, Ravens Steelers. And they said, how would you evaluate your offense? W. Come on.
Yeah.
A win's a win is a win and a win. And
Right.
you've got to go ahead when you're up against somebody, you craft them to play the game that they play and be able to stop it. And that's exactly what they did. You did not need a shootout to beat the Ravens. And everybody else needs a shootout to beat the Ravens.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. That you've got to read between the lines on everything and look at the big picture, forest from the tree, all that garbage, and know that, hey, it doesn't have to be pretty, but pretty is celebrating.
Well, don't misconstrue Mike Tomlin's words as, oh, I'm fine and happy with the way our offense is playing. They won the game. Don't think that they're not going to be really pissed about going 0 for 4 in the red zone.
Oh, yeah.
And this is the second time since Russell Wilson has been the quarterback that they've had a goose egg in the red zone. And so we'll talk about that as we go. We have some other super chats here. Tom plays games. Tom Muir gives us $8. He said $1 per W. Fantastic game. The Wizard of Boz is the MVP of the season so far. Bring on the Browns. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. Thank you very much, Tom. We do appreciate it. Heath Davis gives us $5. Harbaugh looks like Stevie Wonder tried to draw Johnny Bravo. He said, at a wedding, didn't watch, saw the score. That Steelers Ravens football baby got a W. Thank you, Heath. Hope you enjoyed that wedding.
It's a Davis making a bizarre comment. You know?
Wilson Pava gives us $8. His Wang and the Ratbirds choked today. We didn't look like the better team, but we felt in control the whole game. Did the Ravens choke? Did the Steelers win?
Now, I don't believe in choking as much because I think the Steelers if they did choke, the Steelers stuffed the chicken wing down their throat.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Brandon Diaz gives us another $1.99. Said 100% a W is a W. Just want the offense to click. So we all do. And this was an off game, obviously, for what we've seen from Russell Wilson so far. And so let's talk about Russell Wilson. Let's start there. Russell Wilson finishes the day 23 of 26, 205 yards, a 5.7 average, no touchdowns. He threw one god-awful interception, which we'll talk about shortly. He was sacked 4 times for 24 yards. I believe all of those sacks came in the first half. I'll have to double check. For a rating of 67.5. And just in case you were curious, 8 quarterback hits from the Baltimore Ravens in this game on Russell Wilson. Bryan, how do you evaluate Wilson's performance?
W. I really do. Sure, you want so much more, but it's a whole lot better when you're looking at black and purple across the line and trying to move the ball. You put together what you want to do and then what you can do. But when it came down to it, I still felt comfortable with him. He got them in range for those 6 field goals, with the exception of the one interception or the one turnover. I believe that he moved them down the field. He didn't finish, but they still finished. And you brought up you knew they were going to score a touchdown, the Ravens. I did too. And I said, let them. I'm not a big proponent of just saying, let them score now. But the quicker they score, when they got that inside the 5, I'm like, just let them score. And I'm fine with them scoring. And because you had 106 on the clock, and I felt very good with Russell Wilson getting them in range for a 7th Boz field goal. So yeah. I was actually not sweating it. I did not even make a move. I just sat back with the Mr. Burns hands, and I'm like, all right, here we go.
Yeah, I had a good feeling about it. The thing about Russell Wilson, the first half, you could definitely tell a couple things, and I want to make this very clear. You could tell the Ravens had extra time to prepare for this game. They played on Thursday Night Football the week prior, got absolutely shredded, although they won by Joe Burrow and company with the Bengals. They had extra time to prepare for this game. And so I want to make that point. I think that's really important. And so you could tell also that the Ravens were doing things the Steelers were not prepared for. And Russell Wilson got those happy feet going, and he was trying to evade pockets. He was taking sacks, and it just wasn't what we were used to seeing. I'll put it that way. I thought Russell Wilson down the stretch made several very good throws, two of which were to Darnell Washington down the seam, just really good over the middle throws. But I cannot get that damn interception out of my head. That was atrocious. And I listened to some of his post-game press conference, and I don't know if he was asked about it, but if he was throwing a jump ball to Darnell Washington, I don't know. I can't. I've watched that play like 15 times now. I cannot justify what he was thinking at the time. Throw it to Dave Schofield in the end zone. He's in one of those end zones. I don't know which one he is in, but throw it to Dave and his wife up there and give him a souvenir. You don't even give them a chance at bringing that down. The red zone offense is problematic for me. Before we go to that, though, what's your take on the interception?
Two things. Yes, atrocious ball. But on the other side of it, Darnell Washington, I know it's probably hard for him to jump, but he kind of watched it. He didn't even,
it almost looked like he thought someone was behind him.
Yeah. I kind of felt like we were wondering what he was doing there. So, I mean, I'll put blame on both of them, but that ball should have never been thrown.
No. And, the red zone offense, I think this is an appropriate time to talk about it because I'll have to go back and look at what the stats are with Russell Wilson at quarterback in terms of red zone production. Because when you look at like overall season totals, a lot of those numbers are buoyed by Justin Fields. And I think we do have to bring up Justin Fields here. Justin Fields, we finally saw him return to the football field. He had 2 carries, and people are going to talk about how he slid too early. And if he just dives head first instead of sliding, he would be fine. The Steelers would have had an easy first down. We wouldn't have to stress about the Najee Harris run for 1 yard. And so for me, I think that if I'm the Steelers, the next step of this Justin Fields package is to start using it more in the red zone. Because think about when he was the quarterback. When was he making those plays? A lot of them were in the red zone. He was running for touchdowns. I think the Steelers would be wise to do that. What was your take on the red zone? They went 0 for 4, by the way, in the red zone today. What was your takeaway from the failures there?
Yeah, that's just not putting the cherry on top. You've got to do that. I want to say I agree with everything that you said there. I want to say something about Russell Wilson as well, though. And I know we're going to talk about the offensive line later, but Broderick Jones had a lot of penalties. And it seemed like Broderick Jones would get a penalty and they'd be back 10 yards and you'd be like, all right, this is a drive killer. And Russell Wilson erased it. And that's something that we're forgetting about. You're not getting in the red zone. If you're still coming away with 3, that's good. And you're not getting in the red zone without Russell Wilson making those plays because it wasn't all the running. And the running game was decent, but they were bottled up for a lot early. Russell Wilson, those key throws to Darnell Washington, yes. That big throw to Pickens, yes. Yeah. I almost feel like he's not where he wants to be yet, but Justin Fields is not getting them to the red zone. But if you are able to bring Justin Fields into the red zone, like you said, and screw things up and even keep 3 and 2 on the field at the same time to make it even more confusing. Oh my goodness. You've got more magic and you'll convert more. But I just don't think the makeup of Baltimore, Pittsburgh is to allow allow a lot of red zone touchdowns. I don't care if they're 32nd ranked or first ranked where they are in passing and rushing respectively. I care about the fact that the ante upped when both these teams are playing. You've got to clean that up as you get ready to go into December and hope to go into January and February football. But this is still game number 4 too.
Yeah. I think for me, I look at it and say, if you're going to use Justin Fields, they've dipped their toes into that water now. We saw it for the first time. Use him wisely. Why 3rd and 1, 4th and 1? Put him in there. Let him do the quarterback sneak if that's what you want to do. Russell's a small guy. He always has been. He's not 6 feet tall. There's no way in hell he's 6 feet tall. But still, he's just not that type of guy. So put Justin Fields, use him. This is a team that if they're all in to win a Super Bowl this year, and we're getting to that point, Bryan, where we're talking about a contending team. We're not talking about this team that just maybe got lucky in a game against Baltimore. No, we're talking about an 8-2 football team. And depending on how these 425 games go, could be the second team in the AFC. You got to use your talent and every bit of it to make your team the best that they can be. But I don't want to belabor that point. Do you have anything else to add before we move on to the running game?
No, this is a contender, and they've Mike Tomlin mentioned Chris Boswell's 6 field goals, and he said, the only bad thing about it is he's going to be special teams player of the week, and I hate that. I hate that he's that, but if it does one thing, it exposes our warts, and how Mike Tomlin is with warts. He's ready to go ahead and burn those off. So, I feel good about the fact that they're not perfect right now, because nobody right now, they've got the right offensive coordinator to go into the lab, and because they went into the lab this week. And by the way, you and I and Dave, we called this Justin Fields thing. We called it this week. We said they're going to bring him in the right time. So, as far as everything goes, now I feel really good about where they're going, but I don't feel content. And you never want your football team to feel content. And so that's actually a good recipe right now for the offense, Jeff.
Yeah, so let's talk about, I thought one of the more impressive parts of this game plan the Steelers had is that they were adamant that they were going to run the football. And we talked about it on the preview. I talked about it on Let's Ride for my keys to victory, is that you're going up against the number 1 ranked rush defense in the NFL against the Baltimore Ravens. They were giving up just over 70 yards a game. The Steelers' run offense was pretty darn good. I think they were averaging like 130 something, give or take. They rushed for 122 yards on 34 carries. Now that's not mind-blowing. They averaged 3.6 yards a carry. Najee Harris, 63 yards on 18 carries, a 3.5 average, a long run of 13. Jalen Warren, 9 for 41, 4.6 yards. Justin Fields, 2 for 17. Russell Wilson, 4 for 1, but again, his yardage gets screwed up with the victory formation. I think what you have to look at here, though, is when you're looking at time of possession. Time of possession, the Steelers win time of possession 36 minutes and 22 seconds to 23 minutes and 38 seconds for the Baltimore Ravens. This is exactly why they couldn't abandon the run. So did the run game win them the game? No. But the run game kept Lamar off the field long enough, especially in the second half when Roquan Smith left with a hamstring injury. You could see them just slowly grinding the clock. I thought I was impressed with the run game, Bryan. What's your take?
I really was too. And, we talked about this on the preview the other night that, I took the under on all the rushing statistics, but I said that doesn't mean they're going to lose. It just means that they're going to have to do things a little bit different. But it was enough. There were some spots in the first and second quarter where Najee was running well. Then in the third quarter, it seemed like Jalen Warren was running very well. And you've got over 100 yards of offense on the ground, and it was 60-40. And we always talk about how you want to use, you don't want to use these guys 50-50. So if you've got your yards that are 60-40 Najee and Jalen Warren, and they're moving the sticks, which they were, you know what? I actually felt comfortable this whole game, warts and all.
All right, let's go to the pass catchers here. The Steelers, in terms of passing, they have a decent turnout. I mean, you talk about adjusted yards for Russell Wilson. He has 181 adjusted yards, throws 23 of 36 for 205 yards, a 5.7 yard average, no touchdowns, 1 interception, which we talked about. I'm sorry, I'm reading Russell Wilson's numbers. Why am I doing that? Receiving, 205 receiving, 23 catches, 8.9 average, 37 yard long, 32 targets. George Pickens leads the way, 8 catches for 89 yards on 12 targets. He was targeted 12 times. Darnell Washington, 2 for 42 on 4 targets. Najee Harris, 4 for 30. Jaylen Warren, 4 for 27. Pat Freiermuth, 2 for 14. A bunch of others with 1 catch or no catches. Bryan, what was your take on the pass catchers?
Yeah, I thought they were pretty good, and I thought it was spread out well. I like that. I feel like you have an opportunity when you have all of these weapons to be able to go ahead and spread the ball around a little bit, and that helps, and that goes ahead and knocks a defense off track. I like the fact that they were going with some swing passes there. Now, there were 2 passes that were dropped that were egregious, and it was Van Jefferson, and it was Najee Harris. And I don't think there were that many more. So as far as everything goes, I really liked the way the pass catchers played in this game. I think George Pickens is moving closer and closer, maybe not in 2024, but closer and closer to all elite, all pro status. And he really showed it today. 75%, getting 75% of those balls. And I think one of them was one when he rolled over, and I think it was a hard catch to bring in. But when you're 8 for 12 and you're getting 75%, but when the ball goes to George Pickens, you almost feel like almost every time he's going to be standing up and putting his arm forward.
Yeah, and I am one to complain about officiating, but I did think that was defensive pass interference on that Pickens pass towards the end zone in the second half. I think it was Tre'Davious White was in coverage.
Yep.
Only because he barred his arm and he couldn't get his other arm up to try and make the catch. So, I'm texting my dad and my brother, and my brother's like, well, he was getting a little handsy too. George Pickens, that is. Okay, I get handsy, but you can't prevent him from trying to catch the ball. That is the definition of pass interference. So I thought that the pass catchers, again, George Pickens was really it. The passing game didn't look great today. And that's obviously based on the fact that, Russell Wilson was a little off. We can all admit that. And so the Steelers offense does the job. Lastly, though, let's talk about the offensive line. What was your takeaway there, Bryan?
I thought second half offensive line was so much better. Not great, still not great, but the first half, when just like that, 4 sacks. I don't even know if they were out of the first quarter and there was 4 sacks. It just seemed like they were getting bombarded, and Russell was, even on a lot of those completions, he was running for his life. I don't think they were horrendous, but I'm probably not saying that they're anything better than a C in this game. The offensive line is doing enough to allow those 23 receptions and completions. The offense is doing enough to let them get over 100 yards on the ground on a very staunch Ravens rushing defense. They struggled today. There were a lot, and it wasn't just Broderick Jones, but I will say this: it wasn't Zach Frazier, and it wasn't Dan Moore Jr. either. And I'm also going to say it wasn't Mason McCormick. I thought most of the gaffes this week were Seumalo and Jones. I'm not throwing them out. I'm just saying that not the best week for Seumalo, not the best week for Broderick Jones. I don't want to. Somebody in the live chat called him a liability. Mike Tomlin gave him a vote of confidence today. You're not going to do better than Broderick Jones right now, but Broderick Jones has to sack up and do better.
Yeah. And I think that it's a situation where Broderick Jones, not a good day. Absolutely not a good day. And it almost felt like the Steelers needed to get punched in the mouth. Once the game started to get chippy was when the offensive line started to kind of dig in a little bit. They started to do a little bit better. And this game did get chippy in a big way. So any final thoughts on the offense before we take a break and talk about the defense, Bryan?
Yeah, and I think I love the fact that you brought that up. I didn't think about that, but now that I think of the chippiness, the Steelers are one of those teams that when you do punch them in the mouth, they don't run away. In fact, they stand up and get angrier and more physical, and I think you do yourself a disservice by punching the Steelers in the mouth, because they don't run away from fights. And I think the offense, as much as we wanted them to get into the end zone and all those red zone failures, you also got to love the fact that they were standing up and they were putting Boswell in position to do it. And they have so much more pride to go in Thursday night and say, hey, we know that we could have done better against Baltimore. So Cleveland, we're going to trounce you. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I'm just saying that's the Steeler mentality. And you've got to love that mentality, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Doug Johnson in the live chat right now said in the first half, pass plays were taking too long to develop downfield. And he's right. The offensive line wasn't holding up in pass pro. They were trying to take those deep shots down the field, and it just wasn't there. In the second half, they made adjustments. They didn't try and attack down the field as much. They were definitely picking their spots. It is what it is. So I'll tell you what, we're going to take a quick break. If you're watching live on any platform, we're not going anywhere. When we come back, we're going to get to some super chats, and we've got a lot to talk about in a very stellar defensive performance by the Pittsburgh Steelers. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, Steeler fans, thanks for sticking with us. It's the second half of the podcast. Like I said, we're going to get to some super chats here. Let's go. Let's Squint Eastwood gave us $5. His watching Lamar on the sideline was hilarious. Butterfingers Johnson was perfect. Deontay Johnson did get an opportunity, and it just didn't work out. It didn't.
Yeah,
work out.
But Jeff, he didn't get a second half opportunity, it seemed.
I don't think he did either. If he did, he wasn't targeted for sure. Steelers fan 69, who always provides the dad jokes, gives us $5. Has another win, another dad joke at any given moment. Oh, at any given moment, I have the urge to sing "The Lion Sleeps Tonight." It's just a whim away, a whim away, a whim away. Very good. Thank you very much for this.
Or a win away.
Yeah, true. Nate Van Slyke gives us $2 in a super sticker. I'm not looking at my phone, so I can't see what that is.
It's Rocket. It's Rocket, the raccoon from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, okay. That's his his image, but I don't know.
Oh, okay. That's all I see on the screen.
It's okay. Yeah, they don't show him. I don't know why. Tyler W gives us $5. He said, honestly, it's only fair to compare Russ to Jackson. That's football. Did you outplay the man across the field from you? He did. Interesting take. We're going to talk about Lamar Jackson here shortly. Let's do another $4.99 from Dude Soccer 1995. What a game. Thank the Lord for the Wizard of Oz. Here we go, Steelers. Time for a relaxing 6-hour drive home. Enjoy the ride home, and we'll be giving you some entertainment along the way. We'll have you all geeked up and ready to go for hopefully if you drive home for you drive 6 hours to see the Steelers and they win, you're elated. The drive home doesn't suck. When Bryan went to watch the Cowboys and was soaking wet and had to drive home 4 hours and they lost the way they did, that's awful.
Yeah.
You got to see a win. 6-hour drive. Enjoy it. Enjoy all of it.
Haven't lost since, though.
Yeah, the host of the Black and Bold podcast, which can be heard on the audio-only feed, wherever you get your podcast, search Steelers or Steel Curtain Network. Philly G gives us $4.99. He said, what a typical Ravens matchup. We knew it was going to come down to the final few seconds. Want to see improvement, but a win is a win. Here we go, Steelers. Absolutely. Thank you for the tip. Thank everyone who is going to donate any of their hard-earned money to us. We do appreciate it very much. And so let's talk about this defense, Bryan, and let's start by looking at what Lamar Jackson did. Lamar Jackson is such a unique beast in the National Football League. There is no other quarterback like him in terms of throwing prowess and running. So let's just talk about Lamar and how they handled him. He, as a thrower, went 16 for 33 for 207 yards, 6.3 yard average. He had one touchdown through one interception. That was the target to Justice Hill, which was wrestled away by Peyton Wilson. We'll get to that. He was sacked 2 times for a rating of 66.1. The Steelers, in terms of quarterback hits, had 6 total on the game. Now, as a runner, Lamar Jackson had 4 carries for 46 yards, the long 25-yard long, which came right after Renegade, which royally sucked. But ultimately, that's what you have when you hold Lamar Jackson to just around 250 yards of total offense. I think that's a job well done. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I think 67 yards might be a low for the season for him. I don't know for a fact.
67 yards of rushing.
On the ground? Yeah.
He had 46 yards rushing.
46? Oh, my goodness.
He ends up with, like I said, this is not adjusted yardage, but You add the 46 to the 207. He's just over 250 total yards.
Yeah, that's not a Lamar game. And that's not because Lamar had a bad day. That's because the Steelers defense was phenomenal, Jeff. And the Steelers defense forced that bad game.
Yeah, and I'm sick and tired. You know, we live in Maryland. Everyone that follows this podcast should know that. The Dave, Bryan, and I all live in this sometimes a godforsaken state. I'll put it that way. And I'm so sick of hearing Ravens fans saying, "Oh yeah, Lamar's only won once against you guys in 2019 when Ben was hurt and Mason Rudolph almost got killed in the game." But still, oh, he's always sitting out and he's always been hurt. He wasn't hurt this game. He had his full allotment of offensive weapons around him. He has Derrick Henry now. I'm sorry, put that to rest. The Steelers just know how to play this guy. They know how to play the Ravens defense. NFC teams, take note, because no one over on the NFC side can beat Lamar Jackson. He has a ridiculous record against NFC teams. The Steelers know how to stymie what he wants to do. And if I had to point to one specific thing, I don't know if I could. It's the coverage in the back end, holding up for the pass rush, getting him off his spots, having a good feel for what he's trying to do. And there were a couple plays that he could have broken much longer runs, and the Steelers had some nice open field tackles. But let's talk about the defensive line first, Bryan, because I think the defensive line, that defensive front, had a great game. Larry Ogunjobi had 5 tackles himself. Cam Hayward had 4 tackles, 2 solo, 2 pass defenses, and 1 quarterback hit. Keanu Benton had 3 tackles and 1 solo. And this all comes down to them stopping the run as well. For those that don't know, the Baltimore Ravens rushing offense was the number 1 rushing offense. They were averaging over 180 yards a game. And these numbers might seem like, wow, are we really celebrating the run defense? I am celebrating the run defense because they held the Ravens 19 carries for 124 yards, a 6.5 yard average. And Derrick Henry had 31 on 1 run. Lamar Jackson had 25 on 1 run. So there you have 56 yards coming, almost half of the yardage in 2 runs. So I understand that you can't take those away. I thought the run defense was fantastic. Bryan, what's your take?
Oh, I love the run defense, and I thought they did exactly what they needed to do. You know, you've got to look at it. Please tell me Derrick Henry's totals for the game now.
Derrick Henry rushed 13 times for 65 yards on a 5-yard average. He did score a touchdown, and again, along with 31. And I forgot to mention this. It's my fault. Justice Hill had 2 carries for 13 yards, a 6.5-yard average, and a 9-yard long.
Here's the thing. 13 carries for Derrick Henry is low. I think that happened one more time this season for Derrick Henry being low, but then in the second half, he went crazy. This time around, it didn't happen. Yes, he did have that long run, but Henry's supposed to destroy you every single week. And I made this comment the other day. What worried me about this game was the fact that, yeah, the Steelers do well against Derrick Henry. They do well against Lamar Jackson, but they have never faced these two together. And I think this is a different beast. He is having a phenomenal year, and to be able to do what they did against him today, and once again, Lamar Jackson only getting 46 yards. Seriously, the whole time I was believing more and more in the Steelers defense, and I was believing more and more that if they could let time run out, that they've got this. And I was in stadium last week, and I was pessimistic the whole game. I never thought they were going to win that game. This game just felt like when you got out of the first quarter and it was still 6-0, that, you know, you're in pretty good shape.
I thought it was interesting, and if Dave was here, he always has the half-by-half stats. The Steelers put the Ravens in a position where they didn't have Derrick Henry on the field that much in the second half, because Derrick Henry is not a guy that they're going to use a lot with pass protection responsibilities and as a receiver. That's Justice Hill. Justice Hill saw the field way more than Derrick Henry in the second half. And I think that's huge. I think that's absolutely huge when it comes to when they saw Justice Hill in there, the option of running got decreased tremendously. And it all comes together. It all comes together. So it's one of the situations where I thought, and we'll throw in to talk about some other stats here, let's talk about the others on that defensive front. So we already talked about the defense in terms of the defensive line. TJ Watt has a good game, 3 total tackles, 3 solo, 1 sack, 2 tackles for losses, and 2 quarterback hits. You had Patrick Queen, a phenomenal football game, 10 total tackles, 3 solo, 1 tackle for loss. He had a forced fumble and a fumble recovery. Minkah Fitzpatrick had a great game. If someone wants to badmouth Minkah, they didn't watch the same game I did. He saved 2 touchdowns by himself. He had 7 tackles, 4 solo, and he was in the box stopping the run all day. He was one of those guys that was spying Lamar Jackson more often than not. Nick Herbig, 2 tackles, 1 solo. He had 1 quarterback hit. He also forced a fumble on the first drive of the game, I think on the second play. These guys showed out. They showed out. They had a phenomenal game. Brian, what's your take on those guys?
Yeah, they were flying. They were fired up. I love how Patrick Queen said to a Landon Roberts, you better, I'm going to go crazy in this game. You might want to keep me in check. But I was glad a Landon did not keep him in check and let him go nuts, because we have heard since the minute that they signed him from Ravens fans, especially in the state of Maryland, we have heard this. He is nothing without Roquan Smith.
Yeah.
And now we're starting to hear from Ravens fans, well, gosh, Roquan might need Patrick Queen back there. And the guy who was nothing was not Patrick Queen today. And Patrick Queen showed why you brought him in and paid him the money that you did. And I think just throw it out now. Just crown him. He's a Steeler.
He's a Steeler, and I love what Mike Tomlin said after the game when they asked him about Patrick Queen, because he let him be a captain today. He was out there for the coin toss, and he said he heard what Patrick Queen said, how the Ravens didn't even offer him a contract. He said, hey, someone else's trash is another man's treasure, meaning he's super glad. He's happy that Patrick Queen is a member of the Steelers. Still a really young player. I can't stress that enough. He has 4 years of experience, but he is a young guy. A lot of people
25.
thought he shouldn't have. A lot of people thought he shouldn't have left LSU, when he did, but he came into the NFL. He's got a lot of experience, a lot of playtime experience, and you can see him getting comfortable. The last 3 games in particular, he has been flying around, because it's almost like, okay, he understands his responsibility. He's got the green dot. He's on the field for every single snap. He's got to get everyone lined up. They're starting to see this team and this defense, which I know that Tyler alluded to this earlier in the live chat, and I'll give him credit, Tyler W. He said, this is why you have a high-priced defense. This is why they're the most expensive defense in the league. When your offense only puts up 18 points, all by Chris Boswell's field goals, your defense holds the most prolific offense in the NFL to 16 points, and you win. So while we want to bemoan the offense, rightfully so, we got to give a crap ton of kudos to the defense, because they played lights out. And let's talk about another takeaway, which is going to lead us into the pass defense. Again, Lamar Jackson throws for 207 yards, but the pass defense I thought was really, really well done. In terms of receiving, the Baltimore Ravens were led by Isaiah Likely. He had 4 catches for 75 yards. Zay Flowers, 2 for 39. Come to find out, you can't catch a ball with your face, but Zay Flowers did catch a touchdown. Rashad Bateman, 2 for 30. Justice Hill, 4 for 28. Mark Andrews, 2 for 22. The play of the game, by far for me, in terms of turning the tides, was right after Russell Wilson's interception in the red zone. It's Peyton Wilson, somehow, some way, covering Justice Hill on the wheel route down the sideline, and pulls the ball away before he hits the ground. That interception, I think they said is a all-pro, Pro Bowl worthy play. That interception was unbelievable. Unbelievable. So what's your take on the pass defense, Brian?
I thought they did very well, because this is an offense that could shred you. Mark Andrews is so hard to defend, and he only had 22 yards on only 2 catches. He usually just does that in the first minute of the game. So, I think that's a guy that if you're able to stop. Now, there was a big drop by Zay Flowers, but I think anytime you have big drops, it's because you hear footsteps. And I think Minkah's a big part of that. I think the hard hitting of Deshaun Elliott's a big part of that. I thought Joey Porter after a lot of people were worried after the Washington game, after the Washington game, a lot of people were worried. And now you turn around and say, wow, he had a phenomenal game. And he was the one who made the big stop on the 2-point conversion as well, even though that wasn't against the pass, but he was in there. You're getting from 1 to 11. The defense is absolutely just came to play. They knew it was the Ravens and they were ready to go. So I see a super chat pump it up there about Lamar Jackson. I know, but the reason I'm just going to say this real quick. Yeah. The Steelers forced the Ravens problems today. And you're going to see it more and more. It's nobody goes away. I just feel that the Steelers really put the Ravens in their place today, and they were ready. And one more thing about the defense, and this is a typical ridiculous thing that Bryan Anthony Davis says, but one of the biggest, and I didn't really know this until I listened to the Mike Tomlin press conference, one of the biggest defensive MVPs for the Steelers this week, you're going to laugh at me, number 2, Justin Fields. And why am I saying Justin Fields?
It's a good point. Yep.
Because he was, as Mike Tomlin would say, he was Mr. Jackson this week in practice. In the past, the Pittsburgh Steelers would get a running QB, sign him to the practice squad right before the Ravens game, and he was a guy you'd never hear from again, and he was not going to be an adequate Lamar Jackson. Justin Fields is a great Lamar Jackson because he can do that stuff and he can test you in practice, and great teams prepare all week. So I'm saying the 12th man on defense is Justin Fields.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. I do want to answer some questions from the live chat quickly before we go to some super chats. A lot of people asked about Cam Sutton. Was he in there? He did play. Beanie Bishop saw the field before he did, but the Steelers were not in their dime and their light nickel packages often. Why? The Ravens like to run the football. So this was not a game that you were probably going to see Cam Sutton too much, but it was interesting when Joey Porter Jr. left the game with an injury. We'll get to the injuries in a second. It was not Cam Sutton who came in and played on the outside. It was my buddy, Jimmy Pierre.
Thank you. Pierre. I was going to yell at you if you didn't say Jimmy.
Jimmy Pierre came in. He did okay. He didn't piss down his leg, as Mike Tomlin would say.
Hey, you know who his cousin is, right?
It's Lamar Jackson.
Mr. Jackson, yeah.
That's right. I'm sorry, Mr. Jackson. I'm sorry.
I am for
So, yeah, injuries. Let's talk about those. Keanu Benton. I didn't hear Mike Tomlin say what the injury was being like. Was it ankle, knee? But he says he's going to need further evaluation on a short week. That's not good in terms of Keanu Benton's availability. Joey Porter Jr., who left, was able to come back, had a shin contusion. That means he got kicked in the shin, stepped on the shin, whatever. And anyone that wants to poo-poo that, when was the last time you got hit in the shin? It hurt like a mother, and you're not playing football. So those things hurt. Let's get to some super chats here. Tyler W. gives us $2. It's such a nice change to see splash from the inside linebackers. Such a nice change to see the Steelers finally hit on one, meaning you go get all these other names since 2017 when Ryan Shazier was injured. You're talking Devin Bush. You're talking about all these retreads. John Bostic tried it. They tried it with Miles Jack, Cole Holcomb. I hope Cole Holcomb can still play one day. I don't know if he will, but I hope he can. And then finally they go out and they get Patrick Queen. He's making plays. They draft Peyton Wilson. He's making plays. I agree. I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. All right, let's get this other one from James Gall. Gives us $19.99, or Justin Gall. I'm sorry, Justin Gall. $19.99. Thank you very much for that tip. He said, does Lamar turn into a pumpkin when he plays the Steelers, or are we this good? We are legit. Let's go. All right, and so I think that's a great question. Again, I think the Steelers, Terrell Austin and Mike Tomlin, they have a good feel for how the Ravens are, what they're trying to do. And they know how to set it up. But it's not just about the coaching staff knowing how to approach a team. You have to have the players to do it. The Steelers defensive front is athletic. TJ Watt is not just a run-of-the-mill pass rusher. He is an athlete. Nick Herbig is an athlete. Cam Hayward, for his age, is still really athletic. Keanu Benton is a good athlete. Larry Ogunjobi is a good athlete. Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson. Do I have to keep going? They have built a personnel on defense to stop the Baltimore Ravens, and they've been successful. And what is it? 1 win out of the last 8 now, Bryan, for the Ravens?
Yeah. And you know
Or
what?
9. I'm sorry, 9.
Yeah. And I want to say that you brought up Lamar Jackson's win against the Steelers. And I don't even think that's considered in that last 9. But remember, Juju fumbled that game away.
Yeah, that was in 2019 when he fumbled.
Yeah.
Devlin Hodges came in and was just slinging the rock.
Yeah, and that's not even included in those last 5 seasons.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy for sure. All right. We talked about special teams at the top of the show, rightfully so. Something else I want to talk about, Bryan, here is something that is just kind of now, I'm just now letting the dust settle enough in my brain that I can let myself think about this. At 8-2, are the Steelers, are you sitting here? What's your thought about the potential of this team? I hate that word. People that listen to my podcast know I hate that word. But are we looking at a contender, or do they have to still prove something to you?
No, you're looking at a contender, and I knock on wood when I do that. I have no problem knocking. But here's the thing. When you're at 8-2 and you have 7 games to play, and this is the first 2 games into the gauntlet. And we talked about you've got to find a way to go 2-3 the first 3 games of the gauntlet. Now, a lot of people that said, hey, this is a 10-7 team. 10-7 means you're 2-5 down the stretch. And that's a disappointment. I mean, you can't go into the playoffs going 2-5 down the stretch. So right now, you're looking at a goal of 13 to 14 wins right now. You have to look at as a goal. And I think the Steelers deep down, their goal is to go 15-2 and not lose going into the playoffs. And of course that is their goal, and that makes sense. But right now, if you look at 7 games, I think 4-3 down the stretch is a disappointment as well. You've proved that you could win against one of the best teams in the league, and now you have a nice cushion against them. You got to keep on going. And this is a different Steelers team, Jeff, and we all know something about the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a team that does not play down to their competition like they have in past years. And as much as I loved the Ben Roethlisberger years, when Ben and the Steelers under Mike Tomlin played against a non-contender, that's when it got ugly. But This is a different mindset here. And I know we shouldn't be talking about this right now. You take one game at a time, but the Pittsburgh Steelers are in the equation. I said something to you last week, you and Dave on the preview, and I said, I'm fine with the national media not thinking the Steelers are contenders. I'm fine with the national media thinking that all Russell Wilson does is throw moon balls. He didn't throw that many moon balls today. And that's thinking that they all do. So there's always a narrative against the Steelers. Keep those narratives coming. That's fine. But either you or Dave brought it up. I'm not sure which one, but you both agreed that the national media is going to start talking if the Steelers beat the Baltimore Ravens. Now get ready for them to start all those. Oh, I knew all along the Steelers were good. Shut up. But you're going to hear it now. And it's going to happen.
Yeah, let me say a couple things. First and foremost, Wilson Pava gives us $2. Says, dangerous to have this discussion. Let's talk in February. I cannot disagree more, Wilson. And Bryan, you said I shouldn't be saying this. Why? We're not media. We are media by the fact that we cover the team, but we are fans. Let's have this freaking discussion. So you're saying, Wilson, that I can't talk about the Steelers being a contender unless they make it to the Super Bowl in February? No, they're 8-2. They just came off of a huge win, their first division game, their first division win. How can we not have this discussion? How can we not just have this discussion? Let's talk about this. Are they there yet? No. The offense goes 0 for 4 in the red zone. I don't think that's there yet. But at the same time, they're finding ways to win, but this is a different feeling team to it. Again, I think with Russell Wilson at the helm, we're getting a larger sample size with each and every game. We're kind of seeing some trends now develop. It's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds. But I think we absolutely can have this conversation. There's no reason why we should say, well, we should probably table this until when? Until, what are we waiting for? Let's talk right about this now. We're just fans, and fans can talk about this. If the players are talking about it, I might take umbrage with that. They're not. We can though. We're fans. So that's just
it's hard to say that they're not for real now. And it's really hard now, but people are going to start saying that. And I agree with you. And I'm the one that said probably shouldn't be saying this, but just because I know I'm probably going to get attacked for saying it. But, attack me. I'm used to it.
All right, another super chat here from Justin Goggins. It's $9.99. He said, "Are you guys rooting for Buffalo or Kansas City? They are playing currently." He said, "I think the answer to that will answer your own question about how much of a contender the Steelers are in the AFC. To be honest with you, I'm rooting hard for the Bills because I can't stand the Chiefs. I'm so sick of the Chiefs. And so the Chiefs are winning 14-13 at the very end of the half, although Baltimore's threatening in field goal range. So we'll see. I mean, any takeaway on the that game, Brian?
Yeah, it's just like last week, Steelers, Bengals. You want whoever is going to be best for the Steelers. The Steelers don't play Buffalo. But what you really want is, you could hope that the Chiefs go undefeated coming into Pittsburgh on Christmas Day and let the Steelers ruin it. That would be a great narrative. That's something we can't control. And if you asked Mike Tomlin, you'd get 4 words. Jeff, say it with me. We do not care. I'm not sure who to root for in that game. All I know is I want whatever's going to benefit the Steelers the best. And right now, it might be both teams losing would benefit the Steelers. I don't know who winning benefits the Steelers more. And I just don't have that answer yet.
That's right. Okay. It's been a fun show, and there's been a lot of people that have very strong opinions about it. And I want to mention this is happening in the live chat, not necessarily for us. People remember, like, we're allowed to have our opinions. We want to be respectful. And I think that's really important. And when you have a discourse, you have to be open-minded. You have to be able to just walk away from times. Our live chat is open for everyone to be respectful. And if we feel like someone is disrespectful, we'll remove them. And so I obviously haven't removed anyone in this game, but, or in this post-game show, but just for future reference. But Brian, let's finish this up with some final thoughts. What do you got?
What I was saving this about the Steelers being contenders, but I'm going to talk more about the Steelers in big games. We finally got to see the Steelers in a big game, even bigger than Washington. I thought Washington was a big game, but this is even bigger. Now, when you're looking forward, playing 4 games against the Ohio teams, that's a situation that you want to go 3-1 against them. You want to beat the Ravens again. You, at worst, you want to split against the 2 big contenders, the Eagles and the Chiefs. And if you do all that, if that happens, that's 2 more losses, and that's a 13-4 season. And you're going into the playoffs as a top seed. Right now, what this helps you do, and the big thing that everybody was talking about from the very early on, yes, this team is a playoff team, potentially. However, can they win in the playoffs? This game proved to me that they have the potential to beat any team in the playoffs. And I feel like the Steelers, even though they didn't have the short week, the long rest that the Ravens did, I don't think anybody prepares as well as the Steelers right now. So everybody's worried about only 4 games to play Cleveland. Cleveland played. You came out relatively healthy, praying for Benton, making sure that is not a huge injury there. We will find out more from Mike Tomlin tomorrow. Make sure you check out Dave Schofield with all the information after that press conference. But all I'm saying about this is I've never believed in the last 5 to 7 years in a team more than I believe in this one right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's a fair assessment. And I will say this, think back to, and I'm asking all fans to do this, think back to the very beginning of when the schedule was released. What did everyone say? Man, after the bye, those are going to be that's a tough stretch of games. I don't remember anyone saying, man, they better win those in a certain way. you just got to find a way to win in some of these really tough games that have a lot of significance to them as it pertains to the division and the AFC playoff picture. And so the Steelers are in this stretch now, and guess what? They're doing it. They just did the thing the first time they had the opportunity. Now they have 4 days, and they got to go at it again on the road against Cleveland, who just lost, I think it's DeJuan Jones, their right tackle or left tackle, one of the tackles.
He's enormous, too. He's like 6'8", 6'9".
Done for the year. I think he has a foot injury or something like that. That was announced after I think they lost to the Saints today, coming off of their bye week. So it's a situation for Pittsburgh where we now as fans have to look at this and say, man, there are some games where you want to see some type of style attached to it. For me, the Ravens are never in that category, ever. I never have style attached to beating the Ravens because it doesn't matter how you beat them. Just win the freaking game. And that's exactly what the Steelers did. Bryan, what do you want to add?
I'm going to add something. This is a special anniversary here for us at the preview and the post-game show.
It is?
Yeah, and you don't know what it is, but
I never do. I don't know these states. You can.
Oh, you're gonna love this
so
one.
Freaking weird about this stuff. And I'm
like, and this is a weird one. But this is the 5th anniversary this week of the infamous 2 a.m. show. And the 2 a.m. comments, the slump buster, lay the wood and all of that. And this was, and to your point, Jeff, if the Steelers win a 2 a.m. game against the Ravens, it doesn't matter. You are phoning your friends. You're putting it in your Christmas card. You're celebrating. You don't care how ugly it was. You're just dancing and loving it and bragging it and going, I'm him.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the Steelers have a short week this week. We will have you covered every way that you can possibly imagine. Make sure you check out things like my Winners and Losers podcast on Let's Ride tomorrow morning, bright and early. Make sure you check out all of our content on the YouTube channel. This week, the Steelers preview is going to be moved to early Wednesday. So you're still going to have the Pump Your Brakes podcast Wednesday around normal time. We are going to go before that. So you're going to get a double header of content there on Wednesday. Thursday, we'll have the post-game show. All three of us should be back for that one. I don't think anyone's going to Cleveland. So we'll
challenge accepted.
Yeah, there you go. So we'll have the three of us back for the post-game show. It might look a little different this week, but make sure you check out also steelcurtainnetwork.com. I can't say how proud I am of that website and the content we put out there. steelcurtainnetwork.com. Truly great stuff. Bryan, thank you for your time, man. We will be talking next. Oh, actually, this Thursday night. So make sure you stay tuned to everything. Good show as always. Take it easy, everyone. We'll see you on another post-game show.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.